Welcome to Shinecast. We're breaking down the stigma around mental health, one conversation at a time.
In each episode, we're diving into the real talk about the teen experience, sharing stories, and exploring ways to support each other's mental well-being.
We'll be talking about real experiences, sharing stories, and bringing in some incredible guests, from mental health experts to teens who've been through it all. Our goal is to let you know that you're not alone and that it's okay to ask for help.
Join us in creating a community that's all about lifting each other up. Get ready to shine because your mental health matters, and we're in this together. This is Shinecast.
Hi, this is Ava.
And this is Maya.
And today's episode of Shinecast is about academic pressure.
Today we're with our guest speaker.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Odalise. My pronouns are she, her, ella, and I am a behavioral health counselor with a local nonprofit here in Napa by the name of Aldea. And I have a dog, so I consider myself a dog mom and a full-time student.
So we have some broad topics that we wanted to discuss.
Sure.
So the first one is, what are some common signs or indicators that a student is experiencing academic stress, and how would you recommend that we address these concerns?
So being a student and working with students every day, I notice a lot of anxiousness coming from them and their peers. I feel like there's a lot of stress of making sure you get good grades, trying to balance friends, personal life, and overall just mental health and well-being. And I think that's kind of the signs that I see of students when they're stressed out, and speaking for myself as well, right, is you feel like you have a lot to do but not enough time, perhaps staying up late, and then prioritizing sometimes not your mental health is not on your priority list. So just reminding everyone that I am a student also, so I understand what that burnout can feel like, but something that we can work towards is perhaps normalizing having some time off. I watched this TikTok today about how some job titles or descriptions state that you have to work under high stress, and that shouldn't be normalized. So being able to kind of take time off and step away. I know that there's wellness centers at our schools in Napa County, and I think that's a great idea and opportunity for students to take a break if they're feeling overwhelmed and stressed and anxious during school.
Yeah, I know a lot of people at our school take advantage of the resources at our wellness center. Is there anything you have really noticed in the recent years, especially after COVID, that students have experienced or come to you personally to talk about, like personal struggles that have become really prominent lately?
Yeah, working with our population of school age kids, so we work anywhere from like elementary school to high school, and even a little bit of college. Depression and anxiety are really high, right? And a lot of the times it may be that they are not comfortable with speaking about depression and anxiety with their families or peers. So I do appreciate the wellness centers because it's an opportunity to get some sort of like therapeutic opportunity for you to take a break instead of not feeling like you don't have an outsource to take that depression or anxiety away.
And the second part of our question, how have you, what kind of resources have you personally provided for the students that you've worked with? Is there any particular coping mechanisms that you could recommend from your personal experience or just working with other students?
Yeah, so a lot of what we do is we go off of evidence-based practices. So we teach coping skills. So deep breathing. I know that sounds kind of silly, but when you're in the moment and you need to kind of come back down, taking deep breaths and really centering where you need to be. Another one is taking walks. I think we take going on walks for granted, just getting a different scenery, and I think that's also why it's important to have a wellness center kind of away from the classrooms, because you kind of get to see other things instead of just seeing classrooms the whole time. So anywhere from self-care, like taking hot showers or walking your dog or spending time with friends, family, calling somebody on the phone when you're feeling stressed out are some of the coping skills that we try to teach our kids to make sure that they utilize when they're feeling stressed out or anxious.
As a student yourself, would you say that those have worked out for you personally, or?
Yes. So I have a dog, right? I am forced to go on walks. But I think it also gives me an opportunity to remind myself that I can't just stay seated this whole time and get through work. And as much as, I would love to be able to finish everything on my task list, it's not feasible sometimes. And I also have to remind myself, like, hey, I deserve a break, right? Because work is not all that we need to do.
Where would you say the majority of like the academic pressure that students today face comes from? Like, would you say that like parental pressure plays a big role, or like what from like the students that you've interacted with, like what would you say?
I feel like it's a mix of both parental stress and economic stress. So I think right now we all know the economy is very expensive. It's really expensive to live here in Napa. And a lot of our students feel pressure to do better, right? Whether that's academic or trying to find a job that pays well so you can, survive. So I think that from my experience working with the students now, I'm not getting a lot of parental pressure per se, but it's more so about getting a good education so you can get a good job, so you can get good pay.
Kind of branching off of Ava's question, do you have any advice particularly for parents that notice their students and their children struggling academically, if it's just like anxiety or actually struggling with content that they're learning? Do you have any specific advice that you would give to them?
Absolutely. I come from a Latino family, so talking about anxiety, depression, any mental health stuff is not spoken about. And so I would urge parents to start a conversation about how their kids are doing. I work with teenagers all the time, right? So I know that, and I was a teenager once, believe it or not. But I think oftentimes we think we know what's best in our teenage lives, and obviously our parents are just telling us, oh, do this or do that. And it's like, well, they're saying it for a reason, right? But at the same time, I feel like we're not open to the conversation of like, okay, what is it that you need? What is it that you need support around? And if I can't help you, how can I find the help or support from other people? I think parents oftentimes forget that their developing brain cannot think as rationally as an adult.
For sure.
But I think just questioning themselves as what would I need when I was a teenager is a big thing, because I remember like I would love to have me as an adult now as like a mom when I was younger, but I also didn't learn all of this who I am now because I was a teenager, and so I thought I knew best for myself.
I feel like that's a really good question to ask yourself, or even like as a teenager, it's like, that was like a really insightful question. It just really helped me think about that. I really like that question.
Absolutely.
An experience that I've personally had in regards to academic stress, I guess it started in like elementary school, is the idea of like labeling kids as either like gifted or like basic. So what do you have to say about that? Like, would you say that labeling is harmful in terms of like placing certain kids in like gifted programs and placing certain kids in like basic programs? Would you say that like stunts their growth as like as students?
I don't know what basic programs is. Could you elaborate on that?
Well, at my school we used programs like System 44, Read 180. So my school, I went to Canyon Oaks Elementary School, but we would have like these like advanced programs, and then we'd also have these like for the kids that didn't like, I guess that didn't like keep up in school as like easily, so that we had like programs to assist them. So would you say that dividing them and keeping them divided in like their own groups rather than like integrating everyone into like one specific class, would you say that it like stunts certain students' growth academically?
So that's kind of like a two-way answer, right? I can either say yes, it stunts the growth for the student that is falling behind in the class, or if you have support in the classroom, it might be an interruption to the other kids. So I don't think labels are appropriate. I know that right now there's the SPED word is being thrown around a lot, right? And for some of those that you might not have heard that term before is special education. And I think that might be harmful because at the end of the day, we all need some sort of special need, right? Some of us are really good at math. Some of us are really good at English, especially for like our Spanish speakers who are learning English. That's another extra support that they might need. So I do think that sometimes labels can be harmful, and then that becomes, it evolves into bullying, and then people get self-conscious about what their label is. So I would try to refrain from using labels and just say, perhaps using better language around how we can provide extra support for those students, as opposed to naming any like special education or anything like that.
I feel like I definitely agree with what you're saying, that the labels are in a way kind of offensive. With my own experience with it and my family, I think everyone has their own challenges, and like, not that by separating them we should label them, but instead curating their education towards them so they can succeed in the best way they can. And I feel like that's a better way of looking at it, instead of just being like, oh, like putting them aside and being like, okay, they need the extra help, but being like, we just want to work with them so they succeed just as much as anybody else at the same level as them.
Because it's not one size fits all.
Yeah,
people
right.
learn in
For
different
sure.
ways. People have different strengths and weaknesses. So,
Yeah.
and I feel like when you're like labeled in that way, you kind of grow into those labels. So like, even if I feel like it just is, it's just like opposed to like a growth mindset. I feel like if you're labeled as gifted, you're going to grow up thinking that you're gifted. If you're labeled as like a poorly succeeding student, you're going to grow up and like continue to believe that, regardless of like your success or whatever. So
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I moved here from Mexico when I was 8, right? So I was put in a classroom with 5-6 other kids who only spoke Spanish, and we took, I guess in a way, private English lessons. So that was really helpful in and of itself, because in the classroom I had no idea what was going on, right? My teachers all spoke English, most of my classmates spoke English. So coming into this country not knowing a hint of English, I was like, this is perfect. I get to speak Spanish but also learn. And so when I got better at speaking English, I integrated back into the classroom fully, correct? So I think that was really helpful. But when we take perhaps resources away from some of the students and be like, oh, well, you're not doing as good as you should be, I think it takes away from, it might also make them feel like they're not competent enough to be able to learn that. So it just brings the self-esteem down.
So kind of further asking you more questions, have you noticed in your own personal experience, I know you've started talking about your experience with how you slowly became integrated after coming here from Mexico, is there anything that you particularly would critique in our education system that you I know it's a heavy question, it's definitely a heavy question, but is there anything that you've noticed that has affected in our education system specifically, not just like personal struggles, but how it's formatted, that have affected the students, maybe in our district or like in general?
Positive or negative?
Either or.
Okay, so I'll start with positives. I think that schools have moved on to doing block periods, which is, I think, a big success for a lot of the students who may need extra time in the classroom to focus on certain topics. I used to go to New Tech, and then I transferred to Napa High because I was in marching band. It's a whole thing. Anyways, so I remember being at New Tech and having a lot of support in my classroom for 2 hours, right? And it was great because I sometimes didn't understand a topic, so I would get a little bit extra support in that. But when I went to Napa High, it was changing class every 45 minutes, and I felt like I didn't get the opportunity to like really sit with what's happening in class. And now I'm like, okay, now I gotta go to a break, and then I gotta go to the next class, and then so it was just, I think moving to block periods is fantastic. So I'm a big advocate for that. Something that I wish schools would integrate more is teaching basic life skills. I loved going to New Tech for that reason, because I was able to take college classes and I was able to explore, okay, what do I want to do when I get older? I could take like a culinary class, or I could take criminology, whatever thing interested me, I could go because of New Tech. And I know that perhaps Napa High and Vintage do not advocate for it as strongly as New Tech does. I don't know much about Justin Siena, but yeah, so I think that's where schools could do better, is teach life.
Yeah. I definitely agree with your block schedule, because in middle school at ACMS we had a block schedule and I loved it so much. Like, it's such a struggle. I know ACHS just recently switched from their block schedule back to a 6-period schedule every single day. And it really does feel like you're jumping around, and there's just, I feel like it's so much knowledge just being thrown at you in one day, and you only have like at most 50 minutes to digest it, and then you go home and you have like 2 hours of homework where you're trying to understand it, where in a block schedule I felt like I could take my homework, bring it to my teacher, and spend like a good 20 minutes understanding it. And I definitely do agree that some schools should bring back block schedules.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, and that kind of goes along with the familial stress, right? If you're learning a topic that you're not well versed in, but then you go home and your parents have no idea what you're learning. I'm thinking about like math, right? Like, I did math like 6 years ago. I don't remember a little bit of it. But then I try to help some of the kids at school with this homework, and I'm like, I have no idea. I have to Google it, right? I love Google. But at the same time, like if your parents cannot help you, like who's supposed to help you?
And then it's definitely hard because I know in college office hours are definitely like a big thing, but with with our high school teachers at least, it's kind of hard to get in contact with them. The only time they're available is maybe like an hour after school. So I feel like integrating office hours too, this is more of a teacher's preference, but then something I would love personally in every school is integrating, like if we're not going to have a block schedule, integrating an office hours maybe with like another student, or just like providing more resources, since we don't have that opportunity to have more time with our teachers, right?
I remember last year we had it maybe like once a month, but I just feel like it wasn't necessarily enough to like build that kind of connection, especially with like period schedule.
Right.
Do you have anything you personally would like to bring up with us? Or you have any questions for us?
Yeah, what has your experience been like being in American Canyon High School? What do you like about it? What do you wish was different? I know it's a loaded question, but
some of the things you were saying about new tech, I think apply to ACHS too. Like you were saying the life skills part. Maybe this is just me being a senior, but I've been enrolled in like, I've been taking I took government for a semester. I've been taking econ right now, and I've learned a lot in econ, to be honest. I feel like it's we're learning a lot about like budgeting and like, you know, credit cards, like moving on to college and stuff. And this one girl I sit next to, she was like, oh, I like this class. We're actually learning about things that we use in real life. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Like I feel, I don't know, like when people say like, oh, I wish we learned about things that we can actually apply to the real world, that we're actually going to need, like how to pay taxes and stuff, like we are learning that. Another thing you said is like the dual enrollment. At least for me, like what I've seen with my counselor and stuff, my counselor has like advocated a lot for dual enrollment.
Yeah, for sure. At our school, dual enrollment is a really big thing that a lot of students participate in.
And I don't know, I started taking dual enrollment classes when I was a junior, and that's kind of how I found interest in like my major that I applied to for college. So it's definitely been really helpful.
And I really like the idea of going to college classes, because you also get to talk to people who are working, right? So most of the people that go to the junior college are taking classes and going to school and working. So then you're like, okay, what can this degree get me? What are people doing that I'm doing right now? But then how can I utilize those skills and the things that I learned to apply for like a job? Or maybe I don't want to be a biology major and I want to be a forensic. I don't know. Yeah. But kind of like being able to talk to other people who are in the world now instead of just going to school is really helpful.
So yeah, for sure. Personally, I feel like I've only been at ACHS for 2 years, not even 2 years yet, but I really feel like ACHS and all of the staff there are always there to advocate for us. Even if sometimes you don't feel like that, there's always an opportunity that's waiting for you at American Canyon. And I feel like a lot of the Napa schools, they always provide opportunities for all of the students. It's just up to us if we're going to take that opportunity. Like I found Shine podcast through some of the clubs, some mental health clubs at our school. And I feel like there's just a lot of resources that our counselors and our teachers provide for us. And I feel like that really started to help me realize what I want to pursue in life. And it's just really helped me in the short amount of time that I've been there.
So you kind of asked me this question, but what do you see amongst your peers that affects either you directly or affects your peers in regards to mental health?
Like in regards to like academics and such?
Or personal life?
I definitely feel like the idea that you have to go to college and you have to succeed, or there's like this certain standard that you have to meet, like this unspoken standard kind of, like especially in California, there's like everybody wants to go to a UC, or somebody's like applying to an Ivy League. It's always like, I feel like it's this unspoken standard that you should be always constantly doing your best, or constantly overloading yourself, or you're not succeeding. And this kind of goes with like self-care and stuff. Like I feel like that's a big problem just in general with schools now. It's like you have to be this amazing, perfect, straight A student just to get into college. And I feel like it's part of going through high school is realizing that you don't have to be that to be who you want to be. Like, you don't have to meet this unattainable expectation to live the best life that you want to live, right?
And to add on to that, like as a senior with college applications and everything that we just finished, they're getting really competitive now. And so there would be a lot of people in some of my classes just like comparing their grades, comparing their stats, their extracurriculars and stuff. And then it's easy to like feel discouraged, to feel unconfident in like your accomplishments and stuff like that, because it's like you said, like unrealistic standards and stuff. Like not everyone has like had these like incredible like accomplishments. Like nobody's not everyone's doing this like college level research or like publishing books and stuff. Like
absolutely. Yeah, and I think that there's also a lot of like parental stress around that, because your parents perhaps have a goal or a dream that they want you to obtain, right? But then you're like, wait, I don't know if you've seen this, like, that's not my dream, Dad, that's your dream. But I feel like that's a very common experience from all of teenagers. And yeah, I agree. I don't think you have to go to college to be successful. Trades are amazing. There will always be a need for electricians, plumbing, cars, you know, all of that trade. And just because you don't have a college degree doesn't mean that you're not successful, right? Yeah. So I think you're doing the best that you are with what you have.
Yeah, for sure. And then I can definitely, just kind of expanding more on the topic, I feel like, yeah, there's definitely like that comparison aspect. That's a big thing at school. Even if you're not trying to like shoot for the stars and be the most amazing student, there's always going to be that. It's just like a natural instinct that you're going to compare yourself to others. And it's like a big thing that a lot of students struggle with, like especially me, and I know a lot of the high achieving people in my graduating class. It's like you're constantly comparing yourself, and that has a big impact on our academic stress. It's like, well, if they're doing better, I should be doing amazing. It's always like that thing in the back of your head that's telling you, oh, if they're doing good, you should be doing good. Or if, you know, you're always comparing yourself to somebody else's stats or something.
Yeah, but I think in reality, everybody moves at their own pace. Everybody should be setting their own goals for themselves, and that looks different for everybody, you know. So
do you think that social media has a big role on
for sure.
that comparison aspect of it? And
the social media is like a big aspect, not only academic but like personal.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, something that I always try to remind myself is people will post on social media what they want you to see, right? We're all struggling one way or another, even though, you know, I'm coming on here, I'm having a great time with you two. But then I'm like, okay, after this I have to go do homework and I have to cook dinner, and like just balancing that adult life. And I can only imagine the stress that you have being around a bunch of peers your age, kind of in this like rat race, right? This competition that you always have to do better. But are we really doing better?
Yeah, like not, I don't know. Me personally, like I had a lot to balance my junior year, and it seemed like when I would tell people about like, you know, like the extracurriculars I was in or like what my grades were, they'd be like, how do you do it? And I'm like, it's not easy at all. Like I really had to sacrifice a lot of things. Like, you know, I had to sacrifice sleep and like my mental health and stuff to do that. So it all comes with a cost, right? Not everybody's balancing things as well as they may seem like they are.
And unfortunately, that's been a norm, right? You said we sacrifice things. It's like, why are we sacrificing things? If I'm not doing great today, that's okay. Tomorrow will be a better day. I think that's something that we don't often give ourselves enough praise. Is in, you know, a little bit of relaxation is okay, and feeling like you're under pressure and deadlines and stressed about what's going to happen next and what am I going to be doing next, and if I don't pass this class, it's like,
Yeah.
I remember like reminding myself like that where I'm at is okay, and it's okay if things don't happen when they need to happen in the moment, as long as they get done, right?
Yeah.
And asking for support and help, I think, is a big advice that I can give anybody, is either ask for help from your friends or family, peers, teachers, anyone that you feel like you can trust. And even if it's just, hey, I just need to talk, because oftentimes we feel alone, but we're not alone.
I do actually have one more question for you before we end. Who have you found, this is just like, who have you found that students often go to for support academically and for like mental health support? And like, how have you noticed, like, who have you noticed that they usually come to? Is it like therapists or just resources that are available to them at school, or family, friends?
So Wellness Center being number one, obviously, right? And then I know that Aldea provides services in schools as well. But I have noticed that people get services when it's almost a little bit too late, when you're kind of like reached the top, right? So I would say if you can talk to a trusted individual, whether it's an adult or a peer, but definitely be able to talk to somebody, and then they can help you get to the next person if they can't help you 100%. Even just sitting here and talking about, you know, how your day was is a little bit of decompressing. So being able to do that every day with somebody, or being able to take a time out. But I think there has been a stigma around like obtaining therapy, and it's like, oh, haha, you go to therapy. Like, yeah, I do. It's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. So I appreciate the reduction of the stigma is definitely happening. Not as fast as we would like it to be, but definitely like talking to a school counselor, talking to your favorite teacher or your favorite coach, or whoever, that one person that you can trust, and just reminding yourself that you're not alone, and that there are supports and systems out there that can help you when you feel like you're. So please get help before it's late.
And I think with that question, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you
Okay.
so much for
Thank you
coming
so
to talk
much.
with us. We're so thankful for all your insight and all your answers. And we'll see you guys in the next segment.
Thanks.
Bye.
Hi, guys. Welcome back to our student section. Today, we are with...
Hi, my name is Yesha. I'm a junior and I go to American Canyon High School.
Hi, my name is Maya, and I'm a senior at New Technology High School.
So going back to our topic, which is academic stress, just generally speaking, what are some personal challenges you guys have faced in school or academics in general, and how has that like taken a toll on your mental health?
I'm obsessed with all of my grades, so whenever I like get a score that I didn't expect, I typically freak out and immediately start emailing my teachers about what I can do to make up if it's a test, what can I do if it's a regular assignment, can I do extra credit.
Right.
And at New Tech, it's pretty difficult because a lot of our classes are taken through the college. So then you're talking to professors and you're trying to figure out, how can I be super respectful and not sound like a weird high school student begging for forgiveness. So it's pretty stressful sometimes.
I totally understand the emailing.
Yeah.
I literally did that on Friday with my chemistry teacher.
It's a struggle. And like, I think a really big thing is like, especially my class is like so competitive. And like, that really gets to you because like growing up, like, I think I touched on this like last episode, but like, I grew up with like my parents who grew up in the Philippines, and so because of the way like they grew up, like, you know, they want me to kind of like exceed in everything, and it's kind of just like very typical, like, so that puts a lot of pressure on me. So it's like I developed like this mindset. It's like if I get anything below an A, it's pretty
Yeah.
much failing, and I don't know, it just like took a toll on my mental health because like now I feel so pressured to like just be perfect like all the time, like consistently. But like now that I'm taking like significantly harder classes, it's really hard to like balance everything, and especially with extracurriculars, like it's really hard to just be on top of like every single thing.
Yeah.
And so like that pressure really gets to you.
You know?
And I think especially with like the parental pressure and everything like that, it starts to become just like a norm for you. You know, you kind of set those expectations for yourself, and especially like I remember like during my junior year, I was also taking like AP classes and like extracurriculars. It's becomes really hard to balance everything when you're constantly trying to like meet this high expectation for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like it's like when I talk to my parents about my own struggles with my academics and what I aim to do in the future, it's like they're like, you can't just be a nerd now. Like, you have to be an involved nerd. Like, you have to like school and you have to be involved in extracurriculars or sports or have this amazing thing that you've done. And I feel like I do understand your guys' like constant need to be like the best at it, right? And it's like that's a big problem, especially with me too, where I feel like if I'm not doing my best, it's like, what am I doing wrong? What can I do to make up for it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of following up with like your own struggles, how have you found what are your ways of balancing your own stress or balancing your different responsibilities in school?
For me, I discovered cross country and track, which it can be stressful in its own way because it's competing, and I also have to do it through Napa High while I'm at New Tech. But I need physical activity in order to be able to focus on my academics afterwards. So once I realized that I had to find a way to balance out the academics with sports and also just with like taking time to go and read my favorite book or watch a movie, just making sure I'm always constantly balancing it with typically a heavier emphasis on being active.
I like that. I also, what I try to do is like, now that I have like meetings almost every day and like other things to do, like on top of my schoolwork, I'll like put my time into like time blocks. So like for this time I'll do like my homework, this time I'll do my extracurriculars, and then always at the end of the day I'll try to save like at least 30 minutes for like self-care, like just like unwinding, because I feel like last semester I didn't do like any of that. Like I would just try to like grind everything every single day, but then I would just be so burnt out, so like the rest of the week I wouldn't be motivated to do anything. But now that I save like time every single day at the end of my day to do like self-care and like, you know, actually be normal, I'm like no longer like burnt out. Like I feel happy every day because I feel like I had this mindset where it's like, you know, my goal is like to get into a really good college, like my dream college, but it's like I feel like you also need to be happy on the way there.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's a really good, that's a good motto.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys wish adults knew about the pressure teenagers face in academics today?
I feel like
That's a big question.
there was actually this one time that me and my sister were like literally just like bawling our eyes out because we were like so stressed because our parents have like really high expectations of us, and there was this point where like all the pressure just got to us, so we were crying but together. And so
Sisters forever.
yeah, and so we told one of our parents, but so then that parent told the other parent, and then that parent was like talking to us about it, and then they were like, we're not trying to pressure you, like I'm not pressuring you. I was like, oh my god, you're so right. like you know, it isn't like, I think it's hard for them to like differentiate, like just because they say that doesn't mean it matches up with their actions. And so like it's like really hard to kind of like express like how that pressure is like really affecting us, because how they're seeing it is like, oh, we just want you to like do your best, and like, you know, they're always talking about like Ivy League schools, and like, yeah, I do, I am aiming for them, but it's like sometimes it feels like I'm doing it for them, like, you know, like this is like my dream, you know, and it just feels like they're trying to, you know, like get into it, like they're trying to make it like their own. And so yeah, I think I just wish they knew like how it really affected us, because like I feel like we tried to express it, but they just like kind of insensitive about it, and they just like see it a different way, like they only see it in like their perspective, like they kind of just, I wish they just like broadened their perspective so they could see like how it affects us. So
Yeah, I think another problem I've always run into is that my parents didn't go to school when there were like constantly being sent out emails, and you could like immediately access your grades. So I know sometimes like a grade will be posted and the teacher will tell the class, hey, this grade isn't your actual grade, I just haven't had time to put everything else in yet. So sometimes like I'll get like texts or like calls like, hey, what's going on, like, is everything okay? And I'm like, no, it's fine. So just, it's sometimes I think really difficult to explain to parents what's going on when they're just receiving stuff from teachers and staff.
Yeah.
And I think especially with like how much the education system has changed within the past like 10, 20 years, like it's hard to keep up with that. So like, for example, my experience of like applying to colleges and everything, that was mostly something I did on my own. Like I selected the colleges I was going to apply to, like I paid for it and everything. And like my mom was involved in it, you know, I asked for help on like my PIQs and stuff, but she also had these like high expectations to me. She was like, you know, Berkeley or UCLA or that's it, you know. And I was like, you guys don't understand like the acceptance rates to these schools. And I
like,
literally,
it just keeps getting like this.
yeah,
I know.
exactly, with how competitive it's getting. And I literally asked them, I was like, take a guess, like what do you think the acceptance rate is? And they're like, like 30. And I'm like, it's gone down to 9.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so
No, another thing is like the people who are applying to those schools, like it's a lot of the time like the top students of each class. So
Yeah.
it's literally like the top 9% of the top like 5% of each class like applying, and that's like terrifying.
yeah. Speaking more positively, what have you guys found like enjoyable in your guys' academic career?
Specifically with the New Tech, we get to do so many community-based projects. So like I've gotten to take knowledge that I've learned in the classroom and apply it to like everyday life. And like I've been able to organize a swap don't shop day at my school. So like having students bring in a bunch of old clothes and then swap it with other students. So I really, really enjoy being able to sometimes see the impact of like what I'm learning immediately. And then also with college classes, I feel like I'm at an advantage because I've been able to actually kind of hone in on different areas in which I found a lot of interest in. And I love that. I love academia, and I always get super excited about that. And it helps me want to work a little bit harder in classes. Like, say for me, I am not the biggest fan of different science classes or different math classes. Sorry. But I know that I need them, so I try to find areas of interest in them, even though it's a little bit more difficult for me, just because I know that they're a way to get to an end that I really want.
I love that. I'm actually the opposite. I love science and math. I also do like English though, but it's just like I like it. I don't love it. But yeah. I love like what you said about like being able to like take what you've learned and like apply it to like outside of school, like extracurriculars. For example, my favorite class is AP Bio right now.
Wow.
No, everybody loves AP Bio at 8. Or not everybody, but a lot of people like it at our school for some reason.
Well, because
so cool.
our teacher is really good. He's
Mr. G, shout out.
yeah, shout out. Okay, yeah, but it's my favorite class right now because it's just so cool. Because at the same time, I'm also doing molecular biology research, and so I was able to like use what I've learned to apply it. And it's like I was really confused at first, but I remember like as I progressed through like our units in that class, I remember just like I had like a symposium where we like presented our research, and I remember just like talking about it, and I was like, wait, I learned this just now, like I literally learned this yesterday. And I think that's just so cool. And just like walking around like literally the past minute that I just talked, like 60,000 signals are being sent to another neuron. Like, isn't that so cool? But like, yeah, like, sorry, I sound like a nerd right now.
It's okay.
But like, yeah, I think just like finding like the things that you're interested in that like you love learning, like in school, like whether like what subject it is, I think that like helps give you something to look forward to. So it's like not like, oh, school is just like you hate going to it, but there's things that you look forward to. Like for example, I also look forward to choir because I've been singing ever since I was little, and so just like even though I don't get to do like voice lessons or whatever anymore, I still have choir, and it's something that I also look forward to every day. So yeah, just having like a few things to look forward to is so important. So
Yeah. I agree with both of you guys in like applying like what you're learning like in other areas of your life. Like I also like English a lot. That's like one of my favorite. That's actually probably my favorite class right now. And as a senior, you have like a lot more freedom with like choosing your classes and stuff. So like I'm taking like lit and film, and so I love film. I love watching movies. So you know that's been it's been good. And we're reading like the Freedom Writer's Diary right now.
Oh,
and
wow.
It's a good
that's been
one.
so interesting. I don't know, like reading about people that are like also my age. I don't know, like applying that to like people I know, my own personal life. It's been fun. It's been interesting.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you with the choir aspect. I feel like right now I'm still kind of trying to find what I really enjoy about school. I mean, I love learning, I really do, but it's just like I haven't found that one thing that just interests me, like where I just want to go back. But choir just keeps me going back to school. Like like it's one of my last periods, and it just gives me something to always look forward to at school. It's like I'm surrounded by my friends. All I have to do is sing, and I don't really have to worry about anything. So it's just like if I can get through AP World and I can get through math, I'm like I'm gonna make it to choir. And I feel like that's like what I really enjoy about school right now. It's like having that one extracurricular where I really love it, and I feel like I can just be myself.
Yes, it's like that reward.
Yeah.
It is my reward.
We talked about this in our last segment. In what ways do we grow into the labels that we're assigned? So in regards to like gifted programs and like extra support classes and things like that. So
I mean, I think everyone grows in, like, not even just with school, like to any label. Like, it's very hard to get out of it once you've like kind of chosen it. Speaking more from like my experience, it's been more like what type of interest in classes you have. So like you're like the person who always knows everything for history, or you're the person who knows everything for like math and science. So like a few years ago, I always liked to be like the math like type thing, and then as things started to get more complex, they started to get a lot more difficult for me, and I was still able to do them. I just found that I wasn't enjoying it, and I loved history. So sometimes it kind of feels like having this weird like personality shift from like a label of being like this type of person and this type of smart, or sometimes you take up a sport. And I know there's like things have come so far, but I know people used to always joke like sports people like were only good at sports and they weren't good at school, when in reality so many people are good at so many different things, and you can have so many different like almost titles, but they don't like necessarily have to be labels, but everyone ends up labeling them, and then it just can be really overwhelming sometimes.
Right. Yeah. I feel like it's more of my parents. I wouldn't say they like label me, but they see me as like this perfect like child, like, you know, that like just like perfect at academics, extracurriculars, everything. And so it's like that pressure is a lot, and it like you said, it's very overwhelming. I think just being seen as like that perfect child, or like I remember like in freshman year, like I had this like PE friend group, and like all my friends are telling me like, oh my god, Yesha, you're like literally the perfect Filipino kid. I was like, don't tell me that.
Like, I don't want to hear that.
Because like it's very flattering, but like also it's like
It can get to your head.
yeah, it can. And it's like it could make people cocky. I'm not saying like it always happens, like it's not like it happened to me, but you know, I just don't like labels in general, because you always like feel like you need to reach that bar every single time. And so it's like, you know, like people will ask me like, oh my gosh, what did you get on that test?
Yeah.
And then I'm just looking at them knowing I like did not pass it. So yeah, it's a struggle, and it is very overwhelming. It could get to you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely.
Like kind of expanding more on that, like how a label, you can take like something that somebody said, or just like generally like you get put into this group, and then you start taking it to another level in your own head. Like you're like, I need to meet this, like if I'm already in this group, like I need to be there already. And it's just like that's that big thing where it's like you're taking something that didn't originally mean so much and making it more than it has to be. And it's like that's a big thing that I've struggled with, is like taking the labels that other people have put on me like not intentionally or non-intentionally, and just taking it to a whole another level that it really doesn't have to go that far. It's just like my own opinions about myself, and I'm like taking it so far to the point where it's way too much and so much pressure on myself. And it's like one of my best friends was like, he like hit me with like, comparison is a thief of joy, and I was like, that's so cringy. And I was like, wait, but that's so real. Like it helped me like reflect on myself and like my thought processes, and I was just like, that helped me so much to start realizing that it really doesn't matter. Like the labels are only as far as you take it.
Yeah, I think the parental thing that you talked about earlier, like with, you know, the high expectations and everything, like I feel like ever since like I was a kid, like I kind of just had this like advanced label placed onto me because I have a little sister, and so I feel like it wasn't intentionally like from my parents or anything, but they like raised us kind of differently. They had different expectations for both of us. So for me, my thing was academics. So like, you know, growing up I had like straight A's and everything, and then I got to high school and I was like, damn, school's kind of harder than I expected it to be. So I always just had this like expectation to myself to just, you know, because I was like, if I don't have academics, then what do I have? Right. And it was different for my sister. My sister was kind of the opposite. My parents kind of classified her as like the artsy one, like the musical one. So, you know, they encouraged her in like these different extracurriculars, like you know, like she does like cheer and she's in like choir and everything. And I was never pushed to do those types of things because my thing was academics. Her thing was like, you know, being like creative, I guess. So I guess labels are harmful because now I just don't have that confidence to like pursue those types of things. And obviously, like as I've gotten older, I've been able to like define that, right? I'm becoming more of my own person. I'm finding out like what I'm really passionate about.
Do you guys have anything else that you want to talk about?
I wanted to talk about comparison more, and I guess kind of give some advice because I've struggled a lot with it before, and it's really hard when like, you know, I think I always wanted to be like valedictorian, but so is a lot of other people. So, and my class is, as I mentioned, it's really competitive, and I was like, I don't even know like other people's class ranks, but I would like assume. I'll be like, oh, I know this one person is number one, and it hurts when like, it would hurt me when like other people would be like, oh my god, yeah, I bet this other person is number one and it wouldn't be me. And it's like, that was so stupid. Like, yeah, I feel like that doesn't define like your success at all. But it's just like, I think one piece of advice that I would give to people who are like comparing themselves to someone else is that like everyone's journey to their goals is different. It's unique to yourself. And so you shouldn't compare your journey or your path to someone else's when their path looks completely different from yours, because you're not on the same path. Like you know, probably have different goals, or you want to major in different things, or like whatever it is. Like you shouldn't compare yourself to another person who's like their goals are like completely unique to them, and so is your goals. And so I think, you know, I like the thing your friend said. What was it? It was like,
comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah, that's so quirky, but like,
no, it's like he tells me all the time. But and it, like, I didn't start thinking about it until recently, like what it actually meant. And it's like, I feel like that's one thing that really helped me is like kind of like taking on a mantra for myself that I can just repeat to myself when I'm having like, when I'm comparing myself, like comparison is the thief of joy, or like that's his, but mine is like you're where you need to be.
Oh, I
like
love that.
it kind of goes where like everybody has their own journey. Like you're in the spot of like you're exactly where you need to be.
Right.
Like you're put here for a reason. You put yourself in this situation for a reason. You're always going to be where you need to be. It's like that really give me peace of mind when I'm going through a hard time.
Yes. And I think also just reminding yourself to look back at your own accomplishments. It's so easy to get like tangled up in looking at other people's accomplishments and like what they did. And I think it's important, like sometimes what I do to like push myself if I'm really unmotivated is I'll look at like all the things that I've like accomplished, and I'll be like, oh, like I really did all that, like, you know. And it kind of like motivates me to like be productive and like keep going towards my goals, but also being happy in the process. Because like I feel like people just see it as like this end point, like once I reach that I'll be happy, but that's kind of like a bad mindset, because like what if once you do get to that point, like, what are you going to do, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like you need to be happy every step of the way. And so I think that's like the biggest piece of advice that I would give.
I love that.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add?
I'd add, like, just basically what you were saying. Everyone right now, I'm realizing, like, I'm doing the same thing. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna ask, but like, what I know about them, what do I think where are they at? And the one thing I've been realizing more and more is that I'm applying anthropology major everywhere, and a lot of the other people are like applying for different things, and everyone's so unique. And even though everyone has like a ton of extracurriculars and good grades, it's all in very, very different things, and everyone's very different. And I just keep thinking about the fact that it's just going to depend on who's, like, for colleges, looking at my application on the day, what are their interests, and just I'm trying not to put the pressure on myself that it's going to be like what I didn't do. It's that I did what I'm interested in.
I love that.
And
that really hit.
Yeah, if the school doesn't pick me, then maybe that means that the school wouldn't have been right for me. So I'm trying to focus on that, and I think that that's something that's really important to think about, especially for seniors applying to college right now.
I love that. Yeah. Like, whatever college doesn't accept you, it's their loss, you know? That's what my dad always tells me. It's their loss, you know? I was like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. We're pretty amazing.
Yeah.
We're so thankful for having you guys today. So thank you so much for coming and talking with us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I wish you guys both good luck on your college apps, and wishing you luck.
Yes,
Praying for you guys. And thank you so much for listening to Shinecast today. We'll see you guys on our next episode.